Accountable actions, maximizing feedback for decisive measures with our speaker, Rhett Power. Rhett Power, a distinguished entrepreneur and thought leader, dissects the essence of accountability in entrepreneurship. Rhett's journey is a testament to the transformational power of taking accountable actions. As a seasoned entrepreneur, Rhett has honed his ability to systematically gather feedback and convert it into actionable insights. His extensive experience provides a unique perspective on how accountability translates into tangible results. During this session, we will explore the metrics that matter, understanding valuable feedback amidst the noise, and how accountable actions can reshape your quarterly objectives. Rhett will also share the strategies he's employed to foster a culture of responsibility within organizations. Rhett Power is your guide to navigating the intricate landscape of entrepreneurship through accountable actions and impactful feedback.
Okay, so let's hop right into it. We will first, actually, before we get into accountability and what that means and how you define it, I'd like to know a little bit about why you became so driven on accountability. Like, what led to this point in your career?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And, first off, accountability is a scary word for most people, right? And most of us associate accountability in this negative way because somewhere along, probably in our childhood or early adulthood, somebody said to us, "Oh, you've got to be held accountable for that," and it usually around a mistake that we made, or maybe we did something wrong and we got in trouble for it, and somebody said, "Oh, you've got to be held accountable." It's never said when we do something good, right? I've never heard it in the context of, "Oh, you've got to be held accountable because you did that really great." And so my mission is to really change the conversation about what accountability really means and how it's really seen. And I believe accountability is your X factor. And I've just seen it. I think it can be the thing that really sets you apart from any other leader, any other business. And I'm driven by accountability because I've seen it work time and time and time again. A good accountability system, a good accountable culture in an organization really sets you apart, and it really helps you hit levels of success that most companies don't get to. And it's really the hallmark. If you broke down really successful companies, at the heart of what they do is they've got good accountability systems, and thus they have actually a really good culture. Now you can take this way too far. Obviously, you can micromanage people, you can press on people really hard, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a system that and a culture in your business that is fair, that is equitable, that is transparent, that is communicable, or communicative, and I talk a lot about, with my friend Ryan Berman, we talk about a watch your back culture versus a got your back culture.
I like that. That's really catchy.
When you have, and the other thing is interesting about accountability is when you look at a championship team, whether in whatever sport or whatever you're talking about, like, they're highly accountable to each other, and they're highly accountable to the team, and they don't make unforced errors. They don't make these like basic mistakes that kill a lot of organizations and a lot of teams. So that's why I'm driven by it, because I've just seen it work. I've had it work in my own company. And in my own life, I look at it like this. The three companies that I've had that were really successful, we had a high degree of accountability in the organization, and we had a high degree of accountability to each other. And the three that I started where I didn't have the best teams, and for some reason the dynamic in the team wasn't great, those businesses failed. And so I just look at and I look at the companies that we work with now, and to me, that's why I'm so driven by accountability, because I think it's the starting point. We're talking a lot today about culture and all these other things, and but I think it's the starting point for building a really good company and a really good organization, and actually in helping you be a metrics driven organization too. I think it's really, really important. I think it's the starting point for really everything.
Yeah. So you mentioned a lot of really interesting points that I want to touch on. So I want to start first with, I use the term accountability and responsibility kind of interchangeably. I
Mhm.
wonder, if, am I flawed to think that, or is that sort of how you're defining accountability? Or is there a difference that any leader should know in those two terms, especially when it comes to business, obviously?
Yeah, no, there's a difference. A responsibility to me, in the way I view this sort of topic. A lot of people confuse it. A lot of people sort of use them interchangeably, but they are different. If I'm the CFO, I'm responsible for get the monthly numbers done. I'm responsible for the forecast. I'm responsible for getting those things done. Um, if I'm the CFO, I'm also accountable for the difference is I'm accountable for the overall health of the organization, right? Along with the
Mm-hmm.
CEO and COO, right? The C staff. Um, so accountability is more about ownership, right? Accountability is more about believership, owning the results, owning the decisions, owning the results. It's about feeling. It's more to me. It's more of a value.
Mm-hmm.
Accountability is more of a value system, and more of a value than it is. I'm responsible for getting the sales numbers. I'm
Like sort
responsible.
of checking off the marks of what your role is. Got it.
Right, right.
Okay. That makes
To me,
sense.
it's a bigger overarching thing, right? It's a feeling, it's a ownership, it's a belief, it's a way we act, it's a way we make decisions. It's a to me it's a sort of a more deeper thing than a responsibility.
Yeah, I get that. I get that sort of tied to your character, right? So if you're showing up as an accountable person, then that bleeds into your business, and that's sort of the differentiation between just checking off the marks of showing up to work, right? Like that,
Right,
and that's what I'm understanding. Okay, cool.
right.
So that's actually a good way to distinguish the two words, and I'll make note of it from now on, because I'm definitely guilty of using those two terms interchangeably.
Sure, sure.
Um, so, so touching on that, I mean, you also mentioned how this has showed up profoundly in your own experience as a beneficial aspect to include some sort of accountability system or some way to track the progress, right, of a team of the business. I think as entrepreneurs, any business, basically, our key metric is the bottom line because that determines whether or not it's working or not working. But that number doesn't just appear by itself, right? If you unravel it, it's tied to the people who are pushing towards it or the systems or the strategies. So I'm very aligned with what you said about
Mhm.
how it's not just, this tick off the mark. Businesses, in the same way I think that businesses move economies, I think what you're saying is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like people are the ones who are moving the businesses. So by holding them accountable, you're at the end of the day moving the business.
Yeah.
So my question would be, how do you help entrepreneurs who are focused just on the bottom line start to unpack what those metrics are behind the bottom line?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
It does to a degree. I think there are a bunch of answers to that. I think number one, if you pay attention just to metrics, you're going to have probably a pretty terrible culture in your organization. Yeah, and but metrics is a key is extremely they're extremely important, and they're extremely important to measure. And it's actually important that people know where they are against where they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we often miss is, and I've worked in organizations. You've probably worked in organizations where I worked in this sales organization when I was really young, and I remember my general sales man. I was in sales, and my general sales manager came and he said, "Here's your number for the year," and that was all he said to me. You know, and I had to sort of make it up as I went along, and I'd go to him for advice, and he'd just say, "Well, that's your number. You got
Yeah.
to hit it." and not how, not, no, I was probably 22, and first sales job. And so, um, I think people have to, and the other thing is, I didn't know why I had to hit that number. Like, where did that number come from?
Yeah.
What were the other younger salespeople supposed to hit? What were the senior people supposed to hit?
Yeah.
I had no idea where that fit into the whole matrix, the whole organization. And so I think metrics without sort of tying it to some of the softer stuff, like culture stuff, is a mistake. So I think you have to have, like, we talk about, we help companies put in what we call an accountability management system. And what that does is it ties people, let's say the management has said you've got to hit a particular sales number or a particular product delivery date or whatever it is. We break that down by individual in this plan so that everybody understands what their small part is to hit the overall number. We help them understand, we help the companies understand, like, what everybody's role in it is and what everybody's job it is, so that the overall company can be successful. And once people understand, and they also see what everybody else's deliverables are, right? So they see that it's fair and equitable. They see that their piece makes sense with what everybody else is doing and what everybody else is capable of doing. And so when you can tie people's work to the overall goal, what their role in it is, they understand their importance in that role, right? If they don't deliver what they're supposed to deliver, then everybody else is not going to be successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
When that's all tied together like that, and you can give people clarity on what their role is and why it's important, and that they play an important role. And I think that's the key sentence, is they see that they play an important role in this organization, in this success. If you look at the numbers, what's interesting to me is Gallup does some amazing research on, in unengagement. I think almost 75% of our employees are not engaged, and like 20% are deeply not engaged. 50,
What's the difference?
I mean, deeply not engaged means you're so checked out that you're just showing up for work.
Wow.
And never challenged on that, never pushed on that. Right?
Yeah, I can be witness to that, definitely, especially when they're like bureaucratic organizations and they're so large and there's almost like fear to stand out, right? So they just get very quiet and remote in their role. So it's a sickness in a lot of corporations and institutions.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's 14% of employees, and the recent survey said that they are managed in a way that motivates them. It's like 70% of employees feel like they have no direction. 50% of our managers don't know what's expected of them. I mean, it's amazing that we're putting. I use a bunch of sports analogies because I was an athlete in university, and I'm not a big sports watcher, but I think they are apt in a lot of ways, because it's like putting a team out on the field or the pitch, putting our teams out there on the field, and we're not preparing them for it, right? We're not giving them the game plan. And so, to me, having a good accountability system where you're measuring, and it has to be done like this, it has to be transparent. They have to be able to see what everybody else is supposed to deliver. They've got to see where those people are against their deliverables. They've got to be able to track and see how the team is doing, how everybody else on their team, how everybody else in their division is doing. That's got to be clear and transparent. What that does is it takes the bias and the favoritism out of decision making. So another thing that happened to me in that organization was, even when I started doing really, really well and hitting goals, and I figured it out, I never got the good accounts because the sales manager, he had favorites. Right. And so whenever there was a house account or a new account that came in, he would hand it to his favorite people and didn't give us, any of that sort of, we had to continue to stay out on the street and fight. And he was giving some of his favorite people the good accounts. And so that just kills culture. And it happens a lot. People get raises and promotions. I mean, we've all seen it. Somebody that was a jerk got that promotion because they were a favorite of the manager or the director or whatever. So a good accountability system takes the favorites out because it shows what people are doing and actually doing. It shows actual results.
And I think, sorry, go ahead.
No. So I think, accountability system where you're looking at it every week, you're tracking progress every week, you're measuring against the metrics. So, how am I doing this week versus what I'm supposed to, the target I'm supposed to be hitting? You're tracking this metrics every week, and you're having a sales meeting or a meeting within your organization to track that progress every week.
Right. So weekly tracking.
And it makes 100%. And it makes our general meetings more productive. It makes our general meetings more focused. It also heads off any problems, any bottlenecks, any issues, because you see what's working, what's not working. It enhances communication. And it actually puts positive peer pressure on people to deliver what they're supposed to be delivering and do the work that they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted, like Swiss Army knife almost, because you have, as an employee, by setting up these sort of benchmarks, you're able to see where you are in the organization and or you should shift, or if you'd be better suited in another place. Like I know a lot of people enter into an organization and they don't even know the other opportunities that are there, like in something like Apple, but they have so many cross departments that you could shift in and out of. So this is a really good tool for an organization to use to not only measure their employees, but for their employees to navigate the culture. So it's almost like, instead of doing this top-down approach, by having these accountability systems, you've opened it up to like this collaborative way of working together towards the same goal, which is really interesting. And I get why that's related back to sports 100%.
Well, the other thing I think is interesting about it is it gives people. So if you're in a production meeting or a sales meeting or whatever meeting, even if you're in a non-revenue generating department, and you see who's successful and who's doing really well, and if you're a motivated person or a junior person, it also gives you a roadmap to success in the organization, right? So you see what activity that person that's successful in the organization is doing. And if you want to be successful, it gives you a roadmap on how to do it. It gives you, and I love that. I love being able to copy somebody else's success and do what they're doing, maybe in my own way, but the activity is important here, right? The work that they're doing or the things that they're doing to be successful in the organizations are important lessons. And it also, here's the other thing, just a quick anecdote. I think this also really helps managers manage here, because we put a lot of people in positions of management. They were successful in their job. They were successful in sales, or successful in, accounting, whatever it is. And we move them up to the organization because they've been successful at a lower level. We move them up. Somebody leaves, we move them up. But we do a horrible job corporately and globally, I think, in giving those people the tools to manage, a system to manage in, a way to manage results, a way to hit their targets, a way to talk to people. And a good accountability system can give a new manager or an inexperienced manager a real system to work in so that they can hit the numbers and the achievements that they need to achieve. So.
Yeah, and in the same respect, like if you have these benchmarks or you have these case studies almost of when your accountability system was really showing up, when someone performed super well, you can then use it as not just a way to manage your team. Obviously, it streamlines the management process because it becomes super efficient, but also because it allows you to replicate it. And I kind of lost my train of thought where I was going with that, but it allows you to measure when things are going wrong, right? So you can replicate it in that respect, but in the same sense, you can use those benchmarks, those case studies as when things aren't working. And so based on what has worked and what hasn't worked in the past, you're in a better position to, agilely move to any disruption in the market like COVID or anything similar.
Yeah, 100%. And it actually makes you more agile, and it makes you more flexible to do those things and make those pivots, make those changes. The other thing that it does is because in a good accountability system, we talk a lot about metrics. The metrics are actually pretty well spelled out. What is needed to be achieved, right? What are the numbers? What are the benchmark? What are the things that we have to achieve? What are our OKR? So that's pretty spelled out in a good accountability system. But what it does a lot of times, not only does it give us those warnings, but it helps us, it prevents us from being our own worst enemy. I have the worst case of ADD in the world. And when I was in the toy company, I was literally a kid in a candy shop, because there were so many ideas I had about this toy or that toy, and let's do this and let's do that. And I must have been a nightmare for my people because we decide on this toy, and then I'd go to some show or some event, or I'd talk to somebody at Toys R Us, and they say, well, we want this, we want to do this, and I'd come back, and that was the new focus. And a good accountability system protects and gives the team a real focus, and it stops people like me from having all these bright shiny objects that I want to bring in and new changes that I want to make every day. And it gives license to people to say, well, Rhett, you said this yesterday, you said this was the focus, this is what we're working on, this is the goal, this is where we're going.
Right.
What am I supposed to take off my list? Because what's important? It's a check more. It's a system of checks and balances.
Yeah, basically.
It keeps you from being distracted from stuff that's not maybe the best direction for the business.
Yeah, I think that's a really good use case. And also, especially considering the way in which AI is developing right now and all of these new tools are showing up. And so I think most entrepreneurs are like we're skit-scatting between them, trying to figure out which one we should implement in the team. And so having that as, a check and balance system could really help for us to calm down and focus on what it is we need to do so that we can at least hit our objectives. So yeah, I can see how it's useful for that as well. I wonder what advice you would give to startups like pre-seed entrepreneurs who don't really have an operating system in place just yet, because they're still kind of validating whether or not it's a good idea and if it's going to sell. So how do they approach accountability as they're building this foundation? How do you build it into the beginning of a company?
I love that question, because it's hard to do when, I'm working with a company now, and they've grown now from 4 employees. Now they've got 300, and they're trying to get their hands around, becoming a metrics driven organization. They're trying to put in, the system of benchmarks and deliverables and give everybody, a focus and trying to get everybody to stay in their lanes and do their particular thing. When you're a small organization and you're doing everything, right, you've got your hand in everything that's going on. That's understandable. But now that there are 300 people in the organization, they can't be all over the place, right? People have to focus on what they were hired to focus on and what they were hired to do. It doesn't mean that there's not collaboration across, swim lanes or across verticals, but at the same time, you can't have your, COO getting involved in marketing and trying to make, approve text or approve social media put. You have to stay in. You need people to stay in their lanes and focus on what they're supposed to focus on. So it's easy to do from the very beginning. I think it just means that it doesn't have to be as complicated as sort of system, or it doesn't have to be as sophisticated when you're small. But I do think having, even on a spreadsheet for that matter, keeping focus on your metrics and the deliverables, and the key things that are going to move the business forward, and having your team look at that every week and decide how they're doing against those real key deliverables. I think that's still important to do, and it can be done very simply with a spreadsheet. Hey, how did we do this week on this metrics? Because this is something we've all decided is critical for the business to survive, critical for the business to thrive and grow, and we've all agreed that this is something that we have to do. Then it should go down on your accountability tracker, and you should be looking at it every week and ask everybody how they're doing on that metrics. I think that's a good way to start. And it also starts with the leadership. My business partner and I, when we had 5 people, we sat down every week and we looked at, in the toy company, we sat down every week when we were, just getting started, and looked at those key metrics and looked at the key things and said, are we working on these this week? Or what have we done to make progress on these? What are our challenges? What are our victories? What are we doing right? What are we doing? What's not working? And you track that, right? You make those notes. We actually did it with a red, green, or yellow, and red meant that we didn't make any progress, and we needed to explore why we didn't make any progress. So that line had some notes on it. If we had a green, that meant we made progress. If we had a yellow, that means that we made some progress, but there were still things that didn't get done, and so that had some notes by it. So we kept track of it every week so that we knew, and not getting sidelined by things that weren't important. So even to that degree, I think you could start setting a really good accountable culture by just doing it even that simply. And just, writing down these things, writing down these goals, putting them out to your team is going to give you such a better chance of hitting your goals and hitting that success that you want. There's in terms of accountability, from a personal level, if you have a goal and you write it down, you're 20% more likely to hit that goal. If you write that goal down and you share it with a friend, you're like 30 or 40% more likely. If you write it down and you tell the friend you've written it down, you show them and you say, I'm going to do this and I want you to ask me about it and push me on it, you're like 75 or 80% more likely to hit that goal and that target or whatever it is you want to go do. So the more you write these things down, you tell people to push you on them and hold you accountable to them, and the more you put that out into the world and you have your teams do that, the more likely you are to hit those targets. That goes from a personal standpoint, and it goes towards your business. The more that you have buy-in on those and you have people push you on those, the more likely you are to hit them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And okay, so I sort of have you nestled in my archive, right? My brain. And every time I think of your interpretation of accountability, I think like my automatic visual association is the rugby scrum huddle.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an accurate metaphor because I don't play the sport, but just the idea of like, having this huddle together, and obviously if someone falls, like the weight of the other person could pull the team down, or vice versa. There's like this two-way communication. But then when I looked it up, so I was like, I don't think that's the right metaphor to use. I realized that they don't track the progress of the ball. They track the progress of the player, which makes it different from American football. And I was like, that is actually a very accurate metaphor, because he's all about building up the people and, and the way optimizing the people in the organization through accountability. And so as your people raise up through this system, your business obviously and your results will. So that's just like, I've got it nestled. Rhett Power.
I've come to the conclusion that our job as leaders is about human optimization.
Yeah.
Right? It really is. It's about getting our people to be at their optimum. And that means now as leaders, leadership is so much harder today, I think. But it's about making sure that there's there's harmony in their lives. Like it is caring about their wellness and their well-being and their engagement, and how they, I think the more they believe in you as a leader, the more they believe in the organization, they believe in the purpose, they believe in their part in it, the better your team is going to be. right? So I think it comes down to it ultimately comes down to believership and do they believe in what they're doing? And that's something that we don't do really well in a lot of companies. Most companies, we focus on those solely on those metrics and those
Yeah.
deliverables, and we say go out and do them, but that's not enough now. It's just not enough.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So let me ask you this, or let's share with the audience. What are you doing now? Where can they find you? How can they start to implement all of this accountability, knowledge, coaching?
Yeah, well, thank you. Look, you can do this on your own. This is you can take a spreadsheet, track your metrics, track your people. Have your team sit down every week and track their metrics and see how they're doing against what they're supposed to deliver. That's a really simple way to do it. You can create your own accountability system that fits your organization. Obviously, we're here to help. I run Accountability Inc., which does two things. We're a leadership optimization firm, and that means we coach, we do team coaching, we do executive coaching, but we also help put in the accountability management system into your organization. And we've done that from small startups to organizations with 8,000 people. A system like ours it was put in at Ford Motor Company by one of my mentors, Alan Mulally. So it's worked at Ford Motor Company. It's worked at the smallest startup, and we can help you do that too. You can find me at Rhett Power on LinkedIn. You can look up. I write for Forbes, and so you can read my Forbes work. I write for Rolling Stone. You can find some work there too. And so you can find me really if you just type in Rhett Power in Google, you can find me. But we're also at accountabilityinc.io.
Very nice. So also a couple things before we wrap up. Rhett has been generous enough with his time to be on the show, but also he is allowing you guys to get a sneak peek at his next book, which I'll let you introduce because I don't know even anything about it, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I'm excited to get people's feedback. I would just say, hey, this hasn't gone to the publisher yet, so read it. Send us feedback. I'd love to hear your opinion. It's about self-talk, and it's about we all have this monster in our mind that leads to making decisions based on fear and self-doubt and self-limiting beliefs. And this book is about how do you manage that, how you recognize it, how you stop it and reframe issues in a more positive, more productive way. And I'm really excited about this book because I think everybody suffers from at some point in their lives, this self-doubt, right? This imposter syndrome, or this doubt that we are not good enough, smart enough to be where we are, to be on the field that we're on. And so and some of us suffer more from it than others, but I think this book will help a lot of people understand how that self-talk really impacts their performance and their success.
Yeah, that's great. I couldn't agree more. I think it's really important for entrepreneurs, especially as you're navigating any obstacle that comes up. It's just like a huge hit to wait, should I be doing this? Should I not be doing this? And so, yeah, I'm excited to read it, and I'll definitely give you feedback.
And I will just say it's a draft, so be kind. We're not quite finished with it yet, but I do want to get good feedback and good recommendations. So be a little kind, but it is still a draft. So
Yeah, we'll keep it in mind. I'm sure it's fine as is, but we'll definitely keep that in mind. Obviously, audience, please just keep it under wraps out of respect, right? Be accountable for that, please. And then last thing, I do have a surprise question. And there's kind of a catch to it.
Okay.
So I'll ask you the question, but the answer is only going to be exposed to VIP members. So if you want to know the answer, you got to get to VIP. So VIP goes for $47.99. You can click the link or go ahead and QR code it, whatever you're supposed to do. But you do get backstage access with the speakers, and you also get to interact with them live and ask them any pressing questions that you might have. So it's a good one. But this one is kind of a game, and I've debated about doing this, but my husband was like, go for it. So without self-doubt, I'm going for it.
Go for it. I love it.
Okay. So my mission is to encourage other entrepreneurs to network more, because I really believe that that rises you up, right? That raises the level to everything, to the whole world. Because if you're doing better, your business is doing better, so the economy is doing better. So this is my mission, right?
Okay.
And I'm doing this in two ways. One, through the show, and the second one is through demonstrating, testing this theory of 6 degrees of separation.
Okay.
So I'm asking all my speakers, I have a mission in 90 days to have a conversation with Elon Musk. So
Okay.
my question, the big surprise question, which I'm trying to like set you up for so you can prepare for it. Who in your context do you have that you could call today who might be able to put me in touch with Elon Musk?
You want a name?
You can share contact information. You can call them. You could put me in touch or do an introduction, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay.
But yeah, the mission is let's get Elon Musk on the next series of shows, which is going to be about risk. So climate risk and AI risk.
Okay. I've got a few people. So
Yeah? Okay. Yeah. So do we save it for VIP?
Sure.
Okay. So you can set them up and prepare them too for the call.
Yeah, I have to set them up before I.
Yeah, I get it. You got to maintain your network, your relationships.
Yeah.
Relationships are key. You have to be accountable to the people. Got it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it was a pleasure.
I won't blindside them with that.
Yeah. I got it. So it was a pleasure, honestly, Rhett. Thank you for your time. You're extremely generous, going out on a leap of faith with Gain Global Economic Advisory Network and taking this on. I couldn't have asked for a better speaker, honestly, especially where we are now, because I think accountability is extremely important for the next phases of navigating, what's on the horizon. So thank you for your work and also your time and coming on the show.
Happy to do it. Happy to help you in any way I can. I think what you're doing is really important.
Thank you. Appreciate it.